This is the course overview video for our capstone course entitled Management of Modeling and Simulation Systems. I'm just going to very briefly touch on what we're going to be doing this quarter just to get you familiar with what's going to be expected of you and what are the main topics that we're going to be covering. First, a quick overview. I want to bring everybody's attention to this is really intended to be a synthesis course, not a review or refresh course. So don't expect that we're going to go back and revisit lots of things that you've covered in other courses. Rather, I want to bring all those things together that I possibly can, hopefully with some new things, and kind of clarify a picture for you of what modeling and simulation actually is and what it can do for you and your organization. You're going to want to expect the unexpected in this course a little bit. Really, one of the main points that I want to get across to you in the next 10 or so weeks is that M&S is really broad. It touches on many, many things, probably most of which you don't consider modeling and simulation, and that's kind of the point. And so we want to talk about that a little bit. And at the end of the course, we'll be talking about strategies to deal with that complexity and all the magnitude of things that we need to know about. We're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to give you a rundown in a moment, but we'll talk a little bit about business processes and how the business of modeling and simulation actually works, a little bit about acquisition. We'll do a little bit on complexity and how that actually deals with M&S programs. We'll walk through what I'll call the tools of our trade. Those are sort of like the meat and potatoes of what all M&S people need to know something about, which does touch on technologies. This is actually the area where you're going to be doing more than me, because I'm going to rely on you to tell all of us what technologies you're most interested in learning about, and we'll bring that into our course. And we really want to focus on hard problems in modeling and simulation that could really impact how our industry is gonna work. I think Steve Jobs once said, if you want to be able to predict the future, invent it. And that's one of the things we kind of want to talk about a little bit about as we look ahead to what modeling and simulation is and can be in the future in DoD, VA, medicine, and healthcare. Okay, so real quick, what our learning objectives are I'm going to start by talking about modeling and simulation as a discipline. It's a little bit of an academic discussion, but one of the points that I want to make here is I think each of us needs to be able to articulate what it is that modeling and simulation is and what you as a modeling and simulation professional now in the medicine healthcare industry, what makes you unique? What makes you not everybody else? What do you bring to your organization that nobody else can do? And that's really what the focus of that module is all about. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the similarities and differences between how the computing industry, of which we are a part, there's really very little of what we do in modeling and simulation that isn't neck deep in the computing industry. How does it compare to conventional industries, and how does this impact how we do business, how we acquire M&S systems, how we maintain them, how we deploy them, all those sorts of things. You'll find that part particularly interesting, particularly if you find yourself managing a sim center at some point. Then we're going to spend some time talking about disruptive technologies, and I'll give you a pretty deep description of what they are and a definition of them. It's sort of become a buzzword of late, and I find that most people who use the term really can't define it. That won't be you. You'll be able to define it. But we want to think about how we deal with disruptive technologies in our workplace. The simple truth is that if you don't understand them and you don't prepare for them, they can be very damaging. And if you do prepare for them and understand them, they can actually be great opportunities for improvement in what it is you do and your capabilities. And then we're going to talk about the primary tools and technologies which all of us need to know about and have. We don't need to be an expert in all of them, but we need to know what they are and how they work together to solve complex problems. And then we want to be able to evaluate new things that come along and analyze how they might change how our industry is going to operate. So the requirements for our course, what you're probably going to want to do is I try to do this every Monday morning. I will post something, a new topic for the week for us to discuss. You're free to discuss, go back and, it doesn't have to end after a week. And I know sometimes you get busy and you might fall a little bit behind, so go back and catch up with what you need to do. But I'm going to post a topic each week that's going to align with the material that you'll find in the learning management system, so you can kind of follow along with our topics as we go. There's going to be our capstone project. This is a 5-part project, and this should be building on what you did in your other courses, so I do not expect anybody to start over again. You certainly can make changes to things that you've done in the other courses. I'm not going to hold you to any of that, but it's our intent that this is all building into a final capstone project that will result in a fully ready to fund type of a project. Not that you need to get it funded, but it's the exercise of going all the way through, identifying a problem, knowing what all the components are that you need to pull together in order to have a plan to execute that research plan, and then potentially get it funded. There's going to be a couple of assignments. They're individual. They'll be separate from the weekly discussions, but related to them. You'll see them as we come along. And then the last thing is what I call our tech talk. I'll ask each of you to select a topic that you're interested in, and you can do this in teams if you like. If you like to have a partner, that's fine. Or if you want to do it alone, that's fine too. But you'll select a topic, and then you'll just give a briefing, and you'll just use exactly what I'm doing right now, which is I'm talking to PowerPoint and doing a narration and having it record for me. And then I can export that out into a video, which you can then upload into YouTube, which is what I usually do. If there's a reason that you don't want to do that, just let me know and I'll share it some other way. But that's typically what we do. More on that later. The texts and readings, the 2 books I use the most are The Innovator's Dilemma by Christensen and Chesborough's Open Innovation. Chesborough's Open Innovation, there's a PDF available for you, so you don't have to buy anything. And I'll describe for you what we need to out of that. The Innovator's Dilemma is we're going to talk about disruptive innovation and how that works. That's a particularly interesting book, just been recently updated. So you might want to get that. I give you the chapters that you might want to be following along with, but I'll also be giving you most of the material here. The Cathedral and the Bazaar is sort of optional. I give you the one main paper called The Cathedral and the Bazaar. Has to do with open source and how that actually works. I think you'll find that interesting too. But if you'd like to get the book, it's a collection of essays, but I will give you the one essay that you need. Here's our top level schedule. Again, we're going to start talking about modeling and simulation again, going back to a high level and talking about what it is. I'll talk a little bit about mainstream, and by that what I mean is like, what's the rest of the Department of Defense in particular doing in modeling and simulation, and how might that relate to medicine and healthcare? Because currently they don't really connect in any meaningful way, but I'm going to ask you if they should. But we're going to talk about what M&S professionals do, and I'm going to really kind of do a deep dive into that. Then we'll talk about technology and change. We'll talk about the economics of computing, disruptive technology, open innovation, a little bit on tech transfer, intellectual property. We'll lightly cover the tools of the trade. There's lecture modules on all this material. A lot of this you've already had, I'm sure, on DoD acquisition and contracting, so there may be material here that you don't need. But there's be some other things on software development, information assurance, open source that might be of interest to you. Then the technology section, this is just sort of a smattering of things that we often talk about, but I can't tell you what topics we're going to get because you're going to tell us what topics those are going to be. But as those come in, I'll be posting them in our discussions. with and giving you the YouTube links so you can watch them on your own, and then we'll be discussing them in our discussion forum. And then I finish up with just talking a little bit about a career in M&S and just kind of bringing you back to the reality of, okay, we're finishing up this capstone, the certificate program. All right, what do I know how to do? How do I keep current? What might I do next? Those sorts of things. Our grading in this class, we do about 25% really talking about our in-class, our discussions online. 40% will be the capstone project, about 15% of these two little assignments I'll give you, and then about another 20% on your technology brief. So that is our high-level overview. There will be more to follow. I'm going to do another video on the capstone project itself, and we will get into our content, and I will see you there.